I think Hank Green just mansplained knitting. Here's why it matters. A few days ago, SciShow posted this video, and on the surface, I'm all for it. Knitting's scientific and technological applications are really exciting, but the way Hank framed it underscored an age-old problem. Knitting has historically been devalued because it's women's work. And throughout Hank's video, that bias bled through.
Hank could have said, knitting is being used in physics, how cool. Instead, the way he said it came across as, knitting's kinda silly, but physics makes it serious. That difference matters, because it reflects how women's work has been devalued for centuries.
I'm not gonna go line by line through the video and make corrections, because Christine already did it, and her reaction video is excellent. I recommend you check it out. Instead, I wanna talk about why your framing matters, and how it undervalues centuries of knitting innovation. So let's talk about Hank's video. What went right, what went wrong, and what's next?
Even though centuries of knitters figured out how to make all sorts of patterns through trial and error, how it all works was mostly a mystery.
Long before physicists discovered it, knitters were already playing with the dynamic nature of knitting. Elizabeth Zimmermann's baby surprise jacket, which cleverly folds from one piece into a jacket. Sandy Peters' fox paws, which uses increase and decrease stitches to create colorful patterning instead of the traditional stranded colorwork. Seamless sweaters knit top up and top down. Origami textured patterns, all of these push the limits of the way that knitted stitches can create fabric and garments. You said that knitters figure things out through trial and error, as if that's not how scientists discover things. The suggestion that much of knitting was a mystery until physicists came along really devalues the clever and innovative work of knitwear designers pushing the limits and the boundaries of what knitted fabric can do.
Knitting evolved purely through intuition and trial and error, but those knit patterns that emerged from generations of knitters tipped off scientists that there might be something useful here.
So why do physicists, and Hank Green, think that the scientific applications of knitting are just being discovered now? Well, historically, women weren't even able to participate in places of scientific discovery. So without that same access to scientific institution, women's innovation was pushed into spaces they did control: the kitchen, the nursery, the knitting circle. That's where they experimented, tested, and discovered. Their science wasn't sequestered because it wasn't valid. It was sequestered because they were excluded. And the innovation that they made was overlooked because it was women's work. And the inverse is just as true. Women were not able to bring their genius into scientific spaces because they were not permitted to enter and participate. So when Hank frames knitting as just art or just sweaters until the physicists arrived, he overlooks the fact that women weren't able to bring their innovations to the table because they weren't permitted to enter the spaces where those innovations were being shared. And women were making discoveries that science ignored because it was women's work, and they weren't given the opportunity for rebuttal.
For centuries, knitting was more of an art than a science.
The claim that knitting was art until physicists came along and revealed it to be science really minimizes the role of art in our lives. Fashion is wearable art, and knitting has played a major role in fashion for hundreds of years. From knitted stockings in the 1400s to fisherman ganzis with unique patterns believed to identify bodies waterlogged after death at sea, to wedding ring shawls measuring 8 feet in diameter but thin enough to pass through a wedding ring, to Lopa Piesa sweaters, practically weatherproof and colorful, worn in Iceland. And the project itself isn't always the art. More recently, yarn bombing has been used as a form of protest.
Fashion isn't separate from science. It's wearable experimentation. Knitting has always been a place where art and science meet, long before physics took notice. Art is how humans test ideas in real time, and knitting has been doing that for centuries.
We've been good at sweaters for a while. Honestly, what are we going to do there? They're already great.
Knitting is about so much more than sweaters. Its mindfulness benefits rival that of Buddhist meditation. And hand-knitted wool socks represent a major innovation in military technology, as their ability to prevent trench foot literally saved lives on the battlefield. Knitting served as a tool for empowerment, as women reclaimed women's work during the feminist movement. Throughout history, knitting has always provided community, solidarity, and survival. Knitting has always been about more than just fabric. And Hank, on a personal note, you're an educator, so am I. I've actually used your videos as tools in my classroom, and I've also used knitting, because knitting allows my students to do math without even realizing they're doing it. And for the sensitive populations that I teach, recent immigrants and refugees, it allows my students to feel successful learning something new in a way that's totally separated from grades and test scores. It allows them to see their growth and their progress, learning something new in an extremely visual, tactile way. It provides a very healthy and productive alternative to a fidget spinner, and its mindfulness benefits are unparalleled. So we're still just beginning to discover the amazing applications of knitting.
Now, perhaps knitting doesn't fill you to the brim with excitement. I get this.
I think it's kind of hard to understand until you've really tried it yourself. So Hank, I have an invitation. I would love to teach you how to knit. It'll take less than an hour, I promise. And I think that once you have that yarn and needles in your hands, you'll understand the craft on a whole new level. As always, thanks to everybody for talking about knitting with me today. It's been fun, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye.